Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Terminally Online Gamers. We took a little bit of a break last week because we had some scheduling errors, but we are finally back, and we have a brand new guest with us. This is my boy. Like, y'all don't understand. I love this dude. We have been friends now for, I think, 5, 6 years going on now.
Yep.
Just a content creator I immensely respect a lot. We got BltzZ on, guys. BltzZ, tell us all a little bit about what you do. For those of you people in the audience who aren't familiar with your content, about what your platform is and what you do on YouTube, man.
Hey, appreciate it, man. Thank you guys for the warm welcome. Love these fellas. My name is BltzZ. I make mostly content on YouTube, and it's about. We all started off with game breaking, like fighting game elements, with like teaching people how to get better at fighting games, teaching people how to just in general get better at games, and it kind of took off with FF7 Remake, which was really surprising. And that kind of like became the brand. Just going forward with every game that I touch, just trying to find the most wacky, craziest combinations that sometimes the devs didn't even think about. And it's been a really fun journey to take that across so many different titles, and that's kind of like the focus on the channel. But we kind of are leaning more into like variety stuff. So obviously we started off with RPGs, and started off with fighting games and RPGs, and now we just kind of dabble in a little bit of everything. So it's been a really cool journey making that kind of content and working with you guys on and off throughout the years.
Yeah, man, it's been absolutely cool watching you absolutely break Clair Obscur.
Yeah,
Like you've been doing all these busted Ville videos, man.
me and Clark were like madmen. You should see our Discord messages. Just we were like basically running spreadsheets on ideas of like different pictos and different damage numbers we can come up with. And I
The way it
remember
should be.
it was fun. I remember this one conversation we had where I was driving, I think, and you were like, "Dude, I just try out this picto right now. Like, I think this is the missing key to go over 1 billion." And I'm like, I won't be home for another like 30 minutes. And then you did it. And it was like such a huge deal. Like even like the devs were like retweeting it and stuff. It was
Yeah.
awesome. Super awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if you want a reason, someone to blame for why Mael got nerfed, it's Clark and BltzZ here who are the primary suspects for why. Because I swear, you guys like started putting out those damage numbers, and they were like, "All right, we got to patch the game. This is
Yeah.
too much. They're
Got a lot
breaking
of
it."
I got a lot of comments from that too. But what was fun was that when we met Jennifer English at Summer Games Fest, which we'll talk about, I'm pretty sure later on. But Jennifer was really cool. She actually referenced the video. She was like, "I really didn't get time to like get to play the game before they nerfed Mael. Like I saw your video and I really wanted to try it out, and now I'm upset." And I was like, "Don't worry, Jennifer, I got you. I think I have something in the works that'll help you get those billions back."
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, boys, the first topic that I want to talk about is Death Stranding 2 is finally here, and the reviews are looking phenomenal. Now, when we're recording this, it is right before the game comes out, so we'll be talking more about the game once we finally have it in our hands. But I know you guys are big fans of Metal Gear and Hideo Kojima. Do you think this is actually going to take home the Jeff Keighley Awards from what you've seen of it so far, Clark?
I do. I think it will. It'll get either directing or game of the year from specifically the Game Awards, and its big competition is Expedition 33, and you could even look at Expedition 33's Metacritic scores and say, oh well, that's got it in the bag, even though like it. Breath of the Wild re-release and Tears of the Kingdom technically have higher Metacritic scores, and I certainly think that it's a contender. But in particular, a lot of times the award shows will favor ingenuity and will favor pushing the form more, and from everything that I kind of am gleaning from the people that I know that participate in the quote unquote Academy Awards of Gaming, right now Death Stranding 2 kind of has it. Now, things like recency bias wear off by the time the awards come up, and there's that Donkey Kong game that might, I don't know, surprise us maybe. It looks really good, and it's got recency bias on its side, but right now I actually do think that from a Game of the Year at Jeff Keighley's award show sort of route, Death Stranding is kind of the sheer win for me. And at 90% for a Kojima game is actually it's less divisive than Kojima himself probably wanted. And there are a few weird reviews in there that are just like confusingly bad faith. But for the most part,
that's more what he wanted there, right?
Yeah, he wanted, he always likes, and it's better reviewed than Death Stranding 1, and I think part of the reason is that from a gameplay perspective, it does a lot to improve some of the really painful kind of entry that Part 1 had, which was this. Part 1 just had this really big filter, and not everybody felt it. I know that Ryan's felt some of it. I know Daryl was kind of in right away, and I kind of was too, but I totally understand why it takes about 10 hours for people to really feel like this game works. Like famously, Video Game Donkey had to play it 3 times. He made 3 videos trashing it before he finally turned heel. I was like, actually, this is really good. And so it's a big filter game, and I think Part 2 does some things to alleviate that and makes the gameplay more engaging right away. And the story stuff is as weird as you'd expect from Kojima, and it does seem to be heavily relevant politically in the current political climate. So it'll be fun to see how that goes. But yeah, I do think it's favored to win Jeff's awards. The rest of the award shows,
As of right now.
As of right now, the rest of the award shows, though, I still think like BAFTA and stuff like that. I still think Expedition 33 is gonna kind of clean a lot of the houses unless something weird comes out. The only other thing that's released this year that I think is like kind of in the conversation is Blueprints. Personally,
I think Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has also got a reasonable shout.
For Britain too, specifically BAFTA.
Yeah, but also, I mean, it was a game that reviewed in the just below the 90 mark.
Yeah.
At the time, it was the game that everyone was going crazy about. Like, there's been a few games that have come out this year where, in that moment, they were everything anyone could talk about.
Monster
and then,
Hunter Wilds.
Yeah,
also.
Monster Hunter. I mean, obviously, that's kind of going through a rough patch at the moment.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're looking at the calendar of things that are going to come out, like Silk Song is still to come out this year.
That's true.
That could be. We don't know, but it's probably one of the most anticipated games outside of GTA 6.
Yeah.
I love the recent trend for Silk Song where it doesn't get like a full trailer or like showcase. It's just like in the background of this.
Yeah.
Oh, what to expect coming soon, and it's like a quick 5-second snippet, and then they jump to something else, and everybody's like, whoa, go back.
And they keep dragging out the release date. They're like, every single thing is just like, yeah, it's going to be out this year, but we don't know when it's going to be. It will be ready for this time, but we don't know when that time actually is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you've also got like Ghost of Yotai, which could be, it's Sony's big
crazy stacked year. Wow. When you think about all these titles, man, it's a crazy good year.
Pokemon ZA could, depending on what they do with it, maybe.
Nah.
It depends, right? It depends.
No, anything could happen except for that.
Yeah, that's like the one thing that definitely will not happen. Everything else you said though, like 100%.
Yeah.
Hey, people liked Arceus.
Yeah, they did.
That's a favorite Pokemon. Yeah.
And then you've also got the sequel of Vampire the Masquerade coming out this year, which has been long awaited, and it's being made by the Chinese Room, who cleaned up at the BAFTAs last year this year with Still Wakes the Deep. So
yeah,
like
which was overrated heavily, by the way. Did you play
still
that?
cleaned up though. Still cleaned up.
I did. I know.
So yeah, I think the Game of the Year
the
conversation is always interesting because like I think now people in January are like, this is going to be Game of the Year.
Yeah.
Without and it's become like this weird like proxy headline of like it's going to be Game of the Year, but we're just around the halfway point so far, and the end of the year is usually when the biggest games come out.
Yeah, that's when recency bias kicks in, and it's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think Death Stranding 2 is going to be in with a shout. I think it's going to be in the conversation for sure.
Yeah.
But I still remember,
33 too. Yeah.
I'm going to probably get some interesting commentary on this. But when Final Fantasy 16 came out, at that point in the year, it would have been a strong contender for at least being nominated.
Yeah.
But then the second half of the year happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. And once like Spider-Man 2 and Resident Evil 4,
Baldur's Gate 3 came out.
Yep.
Yeah. Once Baldur's Gate 3 came out, like the discussion pretty much ended like right there about what Game of the Year was going to be.
It took over the world. Honestly, for DS2, I'm more hyped and excited for it now than I was when the first one released. And I actually didn't really play too much of the first one. I kept starting it and stopping at certain points. And it's like, I'm a huge Metal Gear fan, so I really do enjoy that type of game loop and what Kojima's been able to present with that. So I feel like the energy in the air is different this time around for DS2. I was in the crowd during the Orpheum reveal they did, where they showcased more gameplay. And seeing it in person and also hearing the music, the really like subtle thing they're doing with the music, where depending on the path you take or what direction it is you're heading in, the music will constantly adjust. And it's like, it was really something special, like sitting there in that theater and like actually feeling it. It was kind of like shaking up the seating area and stuff, and like hearing Woodkid actually break down what went on behind the scenes when they were like crafting these things. And they showed us like little examples where like he start off the path and you're walking in a straight line on this cliff, but then if you take like a detour, you go down, you start getting these drums and these like really low beats, and it's like really something I'm going to be looking forward. I didn't think that was an element. I don't know if they did that in part 1. I'm not sure. But that's definitely something I'm going to be paying attention to in like DS2, and just overall the presentation.
Atmosphere was definitely a huge part of the first game. They really like heightened in on the senses when you were playing through it, and I'd imagine they learnt so much from that first game because it was a completely new IP that no one really understood. And now I think based on how successful it ended up being, he's able to then go back and start to think about, okay, how can I turn this into the game that I really want it to be? It's like you see it so many times when it's a new IP, the second game, and then like if they manage to make a third one, it's where they just kind of bring everything together. The third one's usually the most polished, but probably the least innovative. But the second game is where they just really cement all those concepts that they were experimenting with. You know, they don't have to do all the R&D work in the same way to try and figure out if they can even do it. A lot of that's already now, the groundwork's already laid down, so they can spend the time on just making sure that the rest of the experience is exactly how they want it to be.
And I'm also looking forward to Kojima being, like, I guess now 2 for 2 on sequels predicting our future.
Yeah. I'm hoping he predicts something good in Death Stranding 2, but I doubt that he will. I think we're headed toward the apocalypse. So
isn't that world the apocalypse though?
We're already in the apocalypse in Death Stranding, and so I mean, I guess even worse than that. But so speaking of a game series that should also start iterating on itself, at least in my opinion, as I've talked about in length on my content, Final Fantasy 16 has finally come to Xbox, guys, and there's rumors that there is going to be a Switch 2 version. It's a major shift from their PlayStation exclusivity strategy. So, do you guys think this is going to be something that really turns that series around? Or do you think this issue is bigger than platforms? What's your take on that, Daryl?
I don't think this is going to do much to affect the overall numbers of 16. In terms of the broader, like, it's a difficult situation for Final Fantasy. I mean, we have no idea what they're planning for the future, what deals will be struck, what consoles will be in existence if and when it comes out, the next iteration. Yeah. But I think it's, so much has been made about the Xbox launch. I think not releasing on Game Pass was an interesting decision. Maybe they just couldn't strike a deal with Xbox around it, because obviously the Pixel remasters didn't go on Game Pass either, but other properties that they were releasing around that time did. I think a lot of the Mana games went on Game Pass, for example. But no, I mean, Switch 2, there's already in the reports as well that it hasn't really been that great for third parties. I don't think the Bravely Default remaster did particularly well if we're extrapolating out from the Japanese sales, where I think it was one of the worst performing games at launch in Japan. So yeah, like, I don't know if a Switch 2 port of Final Fantasy 16 would really be the best business decision for them. But it depends on how much it costs to make a port. I mean, we don't know how difficult it's going to be to port that engine over to the Switch 2 architecture. It could be pretty quick now that they've done it on Xbox. I don't know. But I'm sure that they would have their financial models to determine whether or not it's a good idea. And they may now be affected by what happened with Bravely Default Remaster.
Yeah, because I don't know. I've seen a lot of people posting their Switch 2, but I haven't seen like a terrible number of people posting Bravely Default with their Switch 2. And
I'd
a lot
say
of
the
people
majority are
say
posting Mario Kart World.
Yeah, and a lot of people say that like it's the game keycard thing.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure, but that is what like a lot of voices have been saying on that. Clark, did you have anything that you were thinking about this, especially with Game Pass? Because I think that's a pretty interesting situation there. Because in my opinion, I feel like just getting more Final Fantasy in more people's hands would be a greater deal. But go on, please.
I do actually think you are right on this. I think it's a big deal, and I think that there's an unspoken strength that comes from just being available on everything. And I think it's more about the message that they're sending is that we're no longer doing this thing where we, like...
Unless we do.
Unless somebody really makes it worth our while, obviously. But there's this message that, hey, probably by the time, for instance, Part 3 comes out, there's going to be... it's going to be available on every system. And, like, moving forward, you're not going to have to, like, be precious with your consoles in order to support the brand. And I think that is something that, like, subconsciously affects how invested people are going to be in a brand. And I think Resident Evil has really shown how important, just not letting that stuff go is, and being aware of like how effective you can be. And I think the other thing that is sort of in the same vein as like kind of changing the way Final Fantasy is viewed is the doing something as like kind of ambitious for them as partnering with Magic the Gathering. And I don't think there's anything that's put quite as big of a face on Square Enix recently as the Magic the Gathering crossover. And it's weird that that's not, Square Enix's own marketing, but it is a choice that they made to allow the collaboration. And, like, we'll talk about Summer Games Fest more later, but one of the craziest things is right now, in Los Angeles during Summer Games Fest, like during play days, there were protests and riots for the ICE raids that happened, which is an immigration thing. And so there's all these people on the streets. And during this, the Hotel Figueroa, which is like kind of a stronghold of of like the downtown LA scene is covered head to toe in Sephiroth and Cloud fighting each other, and it's like this iconic image of like of rebellion and fighting the system, and fighting the systems that eventually turn on us. And you see this portrait, and underneath there's these protests, and so like that's really good visibility. And like, and I'm not kidding you, I had this happen where somebody like looked at those and saw the protests and asked me, they're like, "Oh man, you're a Final Fantasy guy, right?" And I said, yeah, because I had Final Fantasy shirt on. And they said, man, I can't wait for part 2 to come out. I played 16 and it was okay. And I had to break the news to them that Rebirth had been out for like almost a year and a half. Like, it's wild how good that kind of stuff can be, and you don't really think about it. But yeah, so I think that anything that it does to like be less precious with the way that it exposes itself is good for the brand of Final Fantasy, and that includes being a multi-shot sort of deal.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Blitz, you were also there too. Seeing the massive Cloud and Sephiroth there, that seems like it was awesome. Do you have any thoughts about Final Fantasy 16, Game Pass, multi-platform, especially as a Final Fantasy creator too?
Yeah, for sure, man. I think that for Final Fantasy, it's a great step in the right direction. It's not going to make like a significant, massive impact right now, but definitely going forward, if they aim to on launch or as close to launch release on multiple platforms, it's going to benefit them way more than anything else. Just having that availability. You've mentioned it before with PC, right? If in the future like these launches happen and they drop on not just PlayStation but like PC, Switch if possible, whatever else is available, that'll definitely help out. I mean, I've seen over the years, it's not necessarily like Final Fantasy, but I was making content on Mortal Kombat 11 back in like 2019, 2018. And Mortal Kombat 11, it sold great on like initial platforms, but once it finally came out on the Switch, it shot over like the 10 million mark. I think it's like 11 million almost sales. It's like incredible to see like what just having that extra boost from like Nintendo can do. And like I said, that's Mortal Kombat, but like with Final Fantasy, I think going forward, this is the strengths that they need. Like, it's not really a series that is strong for console exclusivity, where people are going to go out of their way to, buy the large numbers and consume this stuff. And similar to like what Clark was saying, I had a bunch of like family and friends that played like FF7 Remake when it first like came out in 2020. And none of them knew that Part 2 had already came out up until like 2-3 months after Rebirth already launched. Like, it was just something that was just not on their radar. One of my cousins, he messaged me. He's like, "Hey, like, I see you playing Final Fantasy 7 Remake, but it looks different. Like, they're walking around like outside of like in towns and stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's the new game, Rebirth." And he's like, "What? So wait, is it Part 2?" I was like, "Yeah,
do you
this
think
has been
that
out for like
the
a couple
naming
months
was part of the problem? Like the fact they called it Rebirth and people didn't necessarily know what that meant. Like, if you're a casual fan, I think everyone for the longest time thought it was going to be called Remake Part 2. Like,
I think it's more so like also the marketing too. I feel like when Remake was coming out, there was a lot of mainstream general marketing, whereas with Rebirth, it was just marketed to gamers, people that were already going to be playing the game. And then weird billboards that were collaborating with mental health awareness companies but didn't mention Final Fantasy, but it had a photo of Tifa and Yuffie and other characters.
God, Ben, what a decision.
Great message, but how can anybody see that and understand that that's Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth in any way?
Yeah. I still see those are actually like around my city, by the way, and I drive around and I see them, and there's a giant billboard of Tifa and Yuffie on there, and I'm just like, it has no context. There's no FF7 logo. There's just nothing on there. It just has like a mental health, like,
embrace
like
the awkward
awareness thing. right? Yeah, that's what it says. Embrace the awkward. To like somebody who's completely normal. Like imagine your grandma seeing this and all they see is Tifa and Yuffie with no context on who Tifa and Yuffie are.
Yeah.
They would be so confused as to what they're even looking at.
Yeah.
Like they would just see two CG anime girls and not really know what that means and what that has to do with seizing the awkward, or that it's actually from a video game called Final Fantasy VII, and it would just be, doesn't go anywhere.
I hope going forward the marketing is a little bit stronger in the general sense, like regular commercials during major either sporting events or around that. I think that is a much stronger focus for them that will help them out in the long run instead of just advertising to general gaming population that's already going to play it.
Well, something
for sure,
that,
man.
Something that so the same guy that I talked to at the protest was like, because I told him, I'm bummed you didn't know about it, but I kind of get it. And I said, what got you to Final Fantasy 16? And he said that he saw a trailer in the movie theater, right? He went to a movie and they had the live action trailer for it, and that's how he knew about it. So, I mean, like there's ways that they have, spent real money, some of it being Sony's, to reach different aspects of their fan base. And a movie theater is not a terrible place for people that are trying to grab the 30 plus crowd, that maybe isn't constantly online and that are getting nostalgia baiters. But there still is this big void for people under 30 and how to market to them. And that's one thing that I think all gaming needs to kind of figure out how they do that. Yeah.
It's a very interesting choice to have a game about eco-terrorists trying to save the planet being promoted by the developers driving around Porsches.
Yeah.
That was an interesting collaboration for sure.
That was, I think we were all...
Terrible mismatch.
Yeah.
Terrible mismatch.
Great.
So, also, too, at Summer Games Fest, we had Final Fantasy Tactics Remastered, and they also have, this new smaller game called Killer N, which, to kind of be honest, is looking dead on arrival. And there was the lack of something that really left an impact on people, that really kind of demoralized people, and that was the lack of Kingdom Hearts 4 news. Do you guys think that game is coming anytime soon? Blitz, do you keep up with Kingdom Hearts?
We're gonna get GTA 6 before Kingdom Hearts 4. That's gonna be the new meme.
Yes, sir. But see, I'm most hyped to see your combat guides on Kingdom Hearts 4 because I think you're gonna be able to go crazy on that game.
I'm excited for it. I pretty much played Kingdom Hearts in a really weird order. Like, I was in middle school, and a friend was describing to me this game he's playing, and he's fighting this dude with silver hair and a long sword. I'm like, are you talking about Sephiroth? Like, what game are you playing? FF7? He's like, no, I'm playing this Kingdom Hearts game. And I'm like, I got to come by your house. So I went by his house, and I saw this, and I was, losing my mind in, middle school, seeing Kingdom Hearts 2. I had no idea Kingdom Hearts 1 had came out. And as soon as he finished it, I borrowed it, consumed KH2, and then I didn't play part 1 until years after when the remixes dropped, which I think probably was for the better because of the ability to be able to skip cutscenes after boss fights. But I'm excited for KH4 because when I played 3, I saw a lot of potential with combat stuff, but at the time when I was making content around that, it hadn't clicked to me to kind of pivot the fighting game guides and breaking games and stuff into other things like RPGs and action-based RPGs. So KH4 is definitely something that I'm looking forward to, but as far as when we're gonna see it, I don't know, man. It doesn't even feel like 2026 is likely. It doesn't even feel like 2027 is likely. I don't know when we'll see. When did they reveal it? Was that 2021?
2022. So it's been 3 years.
Dang.
And the only thing
How
that we got
long
was like
before
a little...
Kingdom Hearts 3 released was that announced? That was like a good 5-6
So-
years as well, wasn't it?
I remember that.
2013 is when it was announced, because it was E3 2013.
It came out in 2019.
And it was alongside Versus being converted into 15. And so we went, I believe, 6 years, right? Because Final Fantasy VII Remake came out a year after Kingdom Hearts. So I believe that was a year. It was either 2018 or 2019 when Kingdom...
I'm pretty sure it was 2019.
It was 2018, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that. And then that's when Kingdom Hearts 3 came out. So we've been waiting quite a long time.
That trailer reveal was pretty awesome too. I remember it. It was like a close-up shot of Sora and then the sea of like what are they called? No, they're not nobodies, right? Heartless. The sea of Heartless. He's like surfing on them. I remember like seeing that footage and I was like, "Yo, that's insane! I can't wait to get that game." 6 years later, and then
yes, that is the Square Enix curse. Clark, what do you think about this? Yeah. Yeah.
I think that, to agree with you guys, it's going to be a while. We got that cancellation notice for the mobile game, and then as a plastic ditch consolation, we got like 4 images, and those 4 images were all of what were clearly the early parts of the game. They were incredibly bereft of Disney things other than Mickey, like the only guaranteed thing. What I think people sometimes forget is that Disney has to greenlight everything. And Disney is not a notoriously easy company to work with on anything, and that they're probably the main roadblock to getting this out in a timely fashion right now. And I think that realistically, we're going to see GTA 6 launched and on more than just the PlayStation by the time we get Kingdom Hearts 4, like a real trailer even. Like, I don't think we're going to see a trailer for Kingdom Hearts 4 before Grand Theft Auto 6. I think we'll see one before the release of Part 3, but it will not come out before Part 3. I do not believe that at all. And I think that, I'm kind of okay with that. Whatever Kingdom Hearts 4 does, it needs to really, like, try and grapple a new audience and be really, really exceptional. And they can't really mess around with the title. Disney's itself is not the strongest brand right now, like in public image. The company's doing fine. I'm not saying that it isn't printing money, but like in terms of like, do you want to collaborate with a company right now? Disney's not like in the best position to strengthen the brand of Final Fantasy, of Square Enix, or any of that stuff right now. So it needs to kind of bounce back a little bit. So I think I don't think this year or next year is a good year to even do it, personally.
I think, I mean, like, your point about Disney, I would like to hope that when they announce a game, that they largely know what's going to be in it, because otherwise that's a bit of a faux pas.
Sure.
But I think that Kingdom Hearts 3 was very successful, primarily on the basis of the IP they chose to work with. It was probably the largest Disney properties they'd ever had in a Kingdom Hearts game. And it's also the most successful Kingdom Hearts game that they've ever had launch. I think that they've taken a look at that and figured out, okay, like Disney are obviously going quite hardcore on some of their IPs now. Frozen 3 is coming out at the end of 2027. I would like to expect that Frozen would be in Kingdom Hearts 4. And if they released after that, assuming that is another $1 billion box office success, which it probably will be, that can only benefit it. But there are so many other big IPs that they can leverage that by the time that game comes out would be quite nostalgic.
Star Wars,
that are also
Avengers,
Star Wars. You've got Marvel, but you've got Zootopia, which I believe is getting another movie. You've obviously got Frozen will be in there. Moana 2 just had a really big box office success. There is a ton of IP that they haven't leveraged yet that they easily can. And your point about the younger audiences...
Lightsaber Keyblade would look really cool.
Yeah. Your point about the younger audiences, this is how Square Enix can get them in their ecosystem. Like, this is the one property they have. But, you know, the crazy thing about Square Enix is that they have these IPs that they can leverage and they don't do anything with them. The lack of frequency is mind-blowing. The fact that, you know, if it is 2028 when Kingdom Hearts 4 comes out, it will have been almost a decade since the last game. And that is a seriously long period of time. The entire audience, you know, people would have been like 9 when the first game came out, 9 or 10, and now they're, you know, almost out of their teenage years. That's a pretty significant chunk of time. But Dragon Quest is in the same situation. It will have been it's been 8 years now since Dragon Quest 11 came out. Nier is in the same boat. But I think Kingdom Hearts 4 has the potential to be a huge game for them, especially if they go down the multi-platform route and it launches on PC and Xbox and Switch and PlayStation all at the same time. That is a game that is capable of selling 10 million.
100%. Completely agree. So I want to move into Summer Games Fest now, guys.
All right.
Especially since 2 of you guys have actually gotten to attend this year. I promise next year I'm going to go, because every time I see you guys going, it always just looks so awesome, and you guys have so much fun, and you meet so many cool people. So just generally speaking, Blitz, can you tell us like what your experience was like there, and, you know, did you have a good time?
Absolutely, man. I think that going forward, I am going to make sure to not miss a single one, even if the releases surrounding it or like the opportunities around it aren't like anything amazing to like go and play. I think the way that they do the showcase and then the play days after that, and the opportunities that you get to meet like so many people like face to face, finally, it's super worth it. And I'm looking forward to like next year when you attend with us, and we'll definitely do like a group trip for it, man, because it's like, it's one thing to finally like get an opportunity to go, but then when you finally play some of these games that you didn't have any like idea that we're going to be there. Like, I was banking on Marvel Tokon being there. It wasn't there, but I did meet some of the Tokon devs, and I kind of held them hostage in a corner and was like asking, hey, so when can I get a chance to finally play this? And they were super cool about it, and I basically talked their ears off for like ever. But they were like super engaging with the conversation. So it's cool, like specifically for that. Like, even if there isn't a game there, there's generally people that are from those studios or that are part of like the team that you can pretty much get an opportunity to chat with, and it's really cool. There's Pragmata, which I didn't even know was going to be playable there. That was mind-blowingly, like, I didn't have my expectations weren't like crazy high to go play it, but I left being addicted in like the 15 to like 20 minutes that I got to play it, and wanted to just keep consuming more and more. And I kept asking the devs, I'm like, are you guys sure this is coming 2026? They're like, yes, for sure it is coming 2026. And that's like amazing to see, like, Capcom is doing 3 wildly different games next year in 2026. You got Resident Evil 9 coming in February. We don't know when Onimusha is going to come out, but like that was also really impressive too. Me and Clark got to see that. And then Pragmata, like maybe towards the later half of the year. I don't know, man. But in general, that whole experience is awesome. Whether you have like appointments to go play games, and it's just been it was a really great experience, you know. And even if you don't have an appointment, some of these people, some of the devs are there, and they're like, hey, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get an appointment to play this. Is it possible to have an opportunity at some time, maybe today, to check it out? And they always work with you on it. They're like, yeah, come back around this time. We'll try to get you in. And really awesome experience overall. 10 out of 10. Definitely not ever going to miss a single one.
Awesome.
10 out of 10 would recommend.
Yeah.
So I got to ask, guys, how is Resident Evil 9? That's like what I really want to know about.
Oh, man. So one of the most immersive, like, we didn't get a chance to play it, but we watched a visual presentation of like a demo that was pre-recorded and stuff, and it was impactful, man. Like they full on did the PT teaser reveal where it's like you're basically hallway horror, like you're walking through a hallway and everything is eerie, and there's no like you hear things in the background that are like jump scary or whatever, but the breathing, the voice actress of Grace, who you're playing as, is so unnerving and so well done. Like she's just like terrified of everything, but the breathing is like a huge major element to her gameplay, and it was like the only thing you can kind of really hear, but it wasn't like annoying. It was really like, can't describe it. Like I was hooked, and I'm just like, I forgot that we were in a theater watching this with other people, and like Clark's sitting to my left, Maximilian dude's like tall asses in front of me, and thankfully they moved him up one more row so I could see. But like it's just, I was so engaged and locked in. The gameplay is going to be really, really fun, and it's going back to like that survival element where you're not like, we didn't see a gun, she didn't have a gun, she was just running for her life, and they brought back like the slow run, and so it's like you really gotta like fight to survive in that, man. And it's just, I don't know, man. I want to hear from your perspective, Clark.
Yeah, the thing that, so it was like PT, but the first sort of encounter you have immediately brought me to actually like alien vibes. Like the way that the enemy stalks you is at such a higher level than, say, like Mr. X from the RE2 remake. Like if it's a giant lurking thing and it's still slow, you can still like outrun it, but at a very slow pace. Like it is a really psychologically immersive. It's also some of the best use of like pure darkness and abstract lighting. The lighting is really tuned. To have, it's like the biggest justification for an OLED monitor I can think of is it's really high contrast darkness, and you got so irritated or like anxious from like watching it through Grace's perspective that you would like, you know, get the little jump scares from like inanimate objects around corners. And then at the end of the demo, they show us that you can switch between third and first person at will. And I'm usually a third person guy. I really prefer third person in almost everything. But it says recommended next to first person, and I think for the purposes of at least what we saw, and you know, there's obviously rumors that she's not the only playable character, etc., that there's a reason that you might play third person for maybe a different character. But for that, like the PT vibes were so strong, I can't see myself actually preferring third person for Grace. And that's a wild statement for me. You know, that's not something that I'm
hard agree with that too. Like the first person perspective was so, it's definitely going to be what you want to play the game on, at least your first playthrough, and then second playthrough maybe third person. And one thing I really like too is that you couldn't really predict the jump scares. They were they kept subverting your expectations at every turn, that when it finally hits you, you forget that they haven't been jump scaring you this entire time, and then when it strikes you, the whole theater like shook. When that moment happened. I mean, we could talk about it. It's so like, there's a point where she's walking through this hallway that you've been walking the entire time, and you finally can open this door because you've obtained a key, just like RE games. And as she's opening the door, a body falls out, and like it's a jump scary moment. She reacts, she gets really terrified about it. And it's so obviously like this body is dead that she kneels down, she puts her finger on the neck to check the pulse, and she just says, "Oh, he's dead." And everybody in the theater starts laughing because they're like, obviously, like this dude just looks like scuffed. And then while she's doing that, a giant hand comes out of nowhere and grabs this body and picks it up and then bites its head off right over her. So all the blood and everything starts pouring on her from her perspective. It was crazy how they did that. So I can't wait till like they actually show it in trailers and stuff. Like they didn't give us any gameplay, unfortunately, but they told us we could talk about all that. And that was like, I remember just leaning forward and just locking in even more. I'm like, yo, what happens now? Are we gonna get a gun? How are we gonna do this? And it's just so well done.
I'm really curious how they did this because, you know, a lot of stuff is basically built for that perspective. So it's either built for third person or built for first person. And so the fact that you can like literally switch at will, I'm almost like, did they basically build the game twice in order for this to happen? Like a lot of these scenes? Because, you know, like take Cyberpunk, for example, right? Like if you do the third person mod on Cyberpunk, you immediately become aware why there's no third person option on that game.
Yeah. It's clear that they, I mean, I think that it's one of the reasons that the rumors about like a second playable character that's got maybe more of an action focus are so prevalent, is because it is very clear that you know they did this with Village, and where they added a patch that allowed, you know, third person view, and for the end of Ethan Winters, you know, and I think that they've been kind of building towards this idea for a while. So I don't think the game was built twice. I think it was always built with this in mind.
It's just a progression of the engine.
Yeah, progression of the engine for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that speaking of that, they probably have a system in place in the engine so that you can, you know, reconfigure these scenes with minimal tweaking. Yeah. To have them in both perspectives.
Yeah.
One thing I did notice is even though it is first person, when things happen, it does switch to a traditional cutscene where it's not from a first person perspective. Yeah. It's like you see Grace's face reacting to things, the monster as it's like approaching you. So there's moments where it doesn't do the Village thing where it's kind of like from Ethan's perspective where all the characters are in his face talking. It jumps out and gives you an actual scene.
Yeah, so it really circumvents that problem by forcing all cutscenes to be third person. Yeah.
Man. So was that the most impressive game that you guys saw at Summer Games Fest, or did you have anything else that like really stood out to you?
Onimusha, you know? Onimusha
looks good. Pragmata, I think.
Yeah. Basically just Capcom.
Yeah.
I'm curious about Pragmata, right? So I obviously, like, Pragmata is infamous for being revealed a long time ago as one of like the OG PlayStation 5 games and then just disappeared. The gameplay that they showed in that initial showcase this time, it looked kind of reminiscent of, say, like Vanquish. Like, how did it play?
It played like so obviously it's a third-person shooter, and you're kind of like wearing like heavy space armor, so you're really clunky and like heavy, but you also like, you know, have the benefit of like lower gravity and boosters, so you can jump and boost around, go like dash left or right. The dodge button is your boost button, which is the R1 button. So you could pick any direction that you want to dash in. I could dash to the left, or I could dash to the right to dodge enemies and stuff. And overall, I thought we were just going to be playing a third-person shooter, and they kind of make you feel that way. As soon as the game boots up, Hugh is the main character you play as. He is approached by a robot enemy, and it's trying to take him out, and they let you shoot it. But you're doing no damage to it. You're doing like 9 damage, 8 damage, and this thing clearly, like, the health bar is not moving at all. Then it switches to a cutscene where the girl, I forgot her name, she jumps on your back, and she says this really cheesy dialogue like, XP 37 1092, I'm gonna hack him. And I'm like, what? So when you hold down the L2 button, which is to aim, she holds out her hand, and you aim your gun as well, and she's like an extension of you, and then she targets the enemies to auto hack them. And then while you're aiming, right, with your left stick, you're controlling like the character and moving it around. You're holding out L2 and aiming. With your right hand now, you actually have to use the face buttons, triangle, circle, square, and X, to hack the enemy. And it slows it down. It gives it like a wait time type of effect, like from FF7. And it slows it down, and it brings up a grid where you have to like well, triangle is up, circle is right. It basically simulates directions, and you have to like take this line through a grid and hit certain like colors in order to get buffs and debuff the enemy.
Yeah.
While shooting it. So it's like it's
very left brain, right brain at the same time. Like you're doing
right,
two
yeah.
things at once, and
at first I thought it was going to be like overwhelming doing that, but the gameplay really works, and it's like one of the most satisfying elements, like the way the controller reacts to you going through the successful colors. There's the green is like the standard one, which will just lower the defense by a lot, and instead of dealing like 9 damage, you'll do like 50. And then they introduce later on a mechanic I really, really liked, these yellow nodes, which are limited. You have to pick these up. And if you go through a yellow one, you lower their defense even more and you slow them when you do it as well. So it's like you have this option now where you can just use the green, or you can just use the yellow, or you can use both, which I thought was really cool. And I can totally see like when we get to a point in the game where there's like waves and waves of enemies, how intense this is going to get. Being able to jump around, pivot, boost dodge left or right, and use or save those like armor nodes for certain enemies. And the weapon variety was pretty interesting too. Like you have a traditional pistol, but you don't reload. It's a pistol that slowly has a bar that fills back up and regenerates ammo. And it's pretty weak. But obviously the shotgun is your big damage one that you find. But you don't actually keep your weapons. When you run out of ammo, he throws it down on the ground. And you just have to go find a new weapon now, or go back to using the pistol. There was it's not a sniper rifle. It was like a stasis rifle where I thought I was just going to use it to like pick off enemies far away, but it actually creates a circle depending on where you're aiming, and it can trap enemies within that circle to kind of hold them off and stun them and do like tick damage over time. So if an enemy is like a group of enemies are coming at you, you can use the stasis gun to freeze maybe 2 of them, or like the high damaging ones, freeze them, get them out of the fight, and then focus on the smaller ones while they're frozen. So it's really cool to see how like the different weapons are going to be used in that way. Because I fully thought it was going to be like a rifle, just like an AR or whatever, but it wasn't. So
That sounds really
pretty
interesting.
cool. And the mobility too, like the dev. Sorry,
go for it.
Just thought of like one more cool thing. So I was in my game breaking like mode, right? And I'm trying to like find a way to move faster because he is pretty slow. And they said that there's going to be upgrades and stuff where you can give Hugh and he'll move quicker or have more boost. But I was doing this thing where I would jump, boost, and then when he lands, almost instantly you can boost again, even though you don't have any like boost meter. And one of the lead developers, he came over and he's like, that's actually a tech that we use in-house where people are doing like crazy speed runs for like certain levels. And I'm like, oh, so like there's going to be different equipment that makes you do it even faster, right? And he's like smiling at me, looking. He's like, that's all. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And I'm like, dude, I want more. So it was a great, great, great game, and genuinely shocked me. So I didn't expect to like it as much as I did.
Do you guys think this is going to be the start of like Capcom version 2? Like it's the because like the first wave of Capcom version 2 was obviously, you know, Resident Evil 7 bringing things back, like Devil May Cry 5, the Resident Evil remakes, and now that era is kind of coming to an end. We're going into a new Resident Evil, which is going to hopefully like really set the stall. We've got Onimusha as a kind of the new old IP they're reviving, and then Pragmata is, you know, maybe that's why they've held it off this long, because they wanted it to be of a good enough standard, because we've seen them launch a few other new IPs in the past sort of 5 or 6 years that just haven't quite landed. They haven't been quite of the same standard that we would have expected based on how they're treating the other ones. Like, do you think that these 3 games going into next year are just them kind of setting their stall to say this is the next generation of Capcom?
Very much so, because if you look at it, man, Resident Evil 9, which is coming out early next year, that's a game that takes place modern times, like 2025, right? Like, I don't know what year it takes place, but it seems very recent and current in like the Resident Evil lore and timeline. Then you got Onimusha, which is samurai old-time Japan, also fighting zombies, but like, and then you got Pragmata, space shooter, where you hack robots and it's like 3 wildly different IPs, and it's so impressive to see Capcom like churning all this out in 2026 and really high quality, because Onimusha looked, from like what me and Clark were able to see of it, it looked really, really far along. It looked great.
Yeah.
Capcom is dead until they bring back Mega Man. I'm sorry, boys. I'm sorry. I'm hitting you guys with the truth. That's
Rant's
when
all
we'll
about
really
Mega
have
Man.
Capcom.
They need new Ace Attorney.
They do. Like, until there's a new I'm really kind of curious. Like,
He's
what they're
waiting
gonna
for
do
like
with that
the
IP.
Rival Schools reboot.
Like, but I feel like, though, like, Mega Man's probably like the last IP that they probably haven't touched that's like really major that they own. So I'm kind of curious, but I know they're going to bring it back. It's really more of a question of when rather than if. It's just,
I mean,
I think they're trying to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah, like it's the beauty of where they're at as a company, right? Because they've now activated or reactivated about sort of 5 or 6 different IP, and they're all in a pretty good place. You got Monster Hunter, Street Fighter, Devil May Cry, Resident Evil, obviously. And I feel as though I'm forgetting some of the ones they've done recently. Dragon's Dogma is still kind of growing, not necessarily an old IP, but one that is doing okay. But they still have tons in their back catalogue that they can still do stuff with, that people are actively wanting them to explore. Like Dino Crisis is obviously a huge one. Like Final Fight would be great if they could figure out a way to, leverage the resurgence of like the 2D beat 'em up scene. They've got so many of these IPs that they can just figure out what to do with them. Like Onimusha is going to be fascinating to see how well that does as a kind of a reboot. Okami 2's coming next year as well. Is that this year?
Actually, I don't know. I don't think Okami's coming this year. Because I don't think anyone's mentioned it. People would be talking about how it's a serious Game of the Year contender, maybe, if it was. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that's pretty far off for now.
But it's still obviously been announced. We know it's happening.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
It definitely is. So yeah, Capcom's on fire, dude. There's no stopping them. That being said, Daryl, you and I were not there. We were not at Summer Games
We
Fest.
were not. I was catching up with things the morning after because they scheduled all the press conferences at like 11 o'clock at night.
Oh my god, yeah, it's brutal if you live in like the UK and you're trying to catch up with all this stuff, and yeah, because it's kind of biased toward the US, obviously, since it's here. But I just want to know, was there anything that you saw that you were really interested in with SGF or the State of Play or the Xbox showcase that happened?
I felt so the Summer Games Fest, as a kind of person who wasn't there, it felt a little bit underwhelming this year as a whole in terms of the conferences themselves. It didn't feel as though many of the major publishers were really there outside of Capcom. Like they were the big one, and Microsoft. I think the Microsoft press conference was probably the most conventional in what people wanted to see, but I think a lot of the other ones, and I include Sony with the State of Play in this as well, there was a really heavy focus on AA games. There weren't too many games that were being announced for the first time. There was a lot of, okay, you already know about this game, but we're just reminding you of it coming out. And of the games that were being announced, a really large percentage were from studios that have never released a game before. So it's kind of like created this weird position where you, as a consumer, you're going in and I guess you want to see what is coming out, and a lot of the time we are either hoping for something that we liked before and we want to see a continuation of, or we want to see what a developer we really like is going to be doing next. But a lot of the games, especially the Summer Games Fest showcase itself, it was just a ton of these, interesting looking games, but I have no real frame of reference for whether or not this game is actually going to be any good, because I don't know the development team, I don't know what they've worked on before, I don't necessarily know the publisher that well. So it was hard to get excited about things in the same way that, you know, if you go back 10 years and how E3 was at the time, it was, you know, that the Sony press conference is going to be 10 really big games from like world-class studios that are going to be announced. They're going to be, you know, and the new God of War, for example, is going to be announced, and it's going to have this huge showcase that everyone's going to go crazy about. It didn't really happen this year, I didn't think. So I just kind of, yeah, it was a lot of games were I'm curious about, but until I know more about whether or not it's actually going to deliver, it's hard to get too excited. But obviously you guys had different experience because you were able to then go and play a lot of these games that were just had like a 1.5 minute trailer that didn't really give too much context beyond that. And I feel as though when you're in that position to be able to do that, it does provide a very different experience. Like I remember listening to Easy Allies, and they were talking about some of the hands-on demos they did for some of the stuff from Summer Games Fest. You know, there's lots of those Epic Games grant games that were being showcased again from a lot of new studios, and the trailer again, they're interesting, but until you kind of go hands-on with them, you don't really understand what those games are really about. And as you said, you get to talk to the developers, you get to understand a bit more about them, their pedigree, like what kind of stuff they're looking to create.
Yeah.
And like a 60-second trailer, it's hard to do that with an IP or a studio that you don't have a frame of reference for.
Yeah, for sure.
And a title that did surprise me, the first day we were going, I had a appointment scheduled, but it was like an NDA thing. They didn't want to say what it was, but during the Summer Games Showcase, me and Clark realized what it was. It ended up being the Deadpool VR game.
Yeah.
Where I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'm going to check it out. And I was actually, I know I had a different experience than Clark. He went and played it first. And it was his first like VR experience, so it was kind of trippy, but from my perspective, I've dabbled in a few like VR games, like the Batman one specifically, and you feel kind of stiff in the Batman game. You're very limited towards what you can do, but you also have to like turn your head a lot. So it's like really weird to kind of like stand and play that game. But the Deadpool game actually surprised me. I was doing some wild stuff. Like they really went and they made it sandboxy as hell. Like if there's anything you can think of that you want Deadpool to do, he can do it. Like I was taking the swords, right? Because anytime you have unlimited swords, you could take the sword out from your back and you can throw it like a gun, and it's like a one-shot kill. So I was doing weird stuff where like I would cut off an enemy's head, and then I'd take both the swords and I'll launch the head up, and while the head is like flying up, I'll take the sword and I'll throw it at the head, and it'll go right through and like pin it against the wall. And and the dev like tapped me on the shoulder, and he was like, "Yo, that was badass." that was cool. So I was wilding out on this game, just doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And when I took the helmet off, I was like surrounded by like 3 of like the people that work on the game, and they're like, we really loved your gameplay, and you seem to be enjoying it, and you're doing some really awesome stuff. I just want to like, do we have a moment to like chat with you? Completely forgetting that I have an appointment with Capcom in like 20 minutes, and I like talked their ear off for like 20 minutes about how awesome this game actually was. I wasn't expecting much going in, and it really does like allow like a freestyle type of like gameplay. And one of those devs that was there was like the Marvel Tocon guy, and that's where I kind of like it got out of hand, or I was just like talking his ear off after a little bit. And then Clark is like calling me. He's like, "Hey, yo, we're going to the theater to the Capcom thing right now." And I'm like, "Oh, my bad."
Kind of awkward, especially with Marvel Tocon and Capcom and everything as well.
Yeah. And so the Deadpool game wasn't really too high on at first, but I left genuinely surprised. I really enjoyed it. And if you like VR, you'll definitely like that. And I also got an opportunity to play Spine, which is like that gun kata fighting game. It's not a fighting game, sorry. It's an action game that kind of has like Arkham Batman combat, where you're like using a gun and like countering and parrying and shooting enemies.
It's like Red Steel.
In the middle of it.
If you're
Red Steel?
Anyone played that?
Yeah.
That was a Wii game, right?
Yeah.
I remember it. Yeah.
It's like you had a sword, but everyone else like used guns and stuff, so you had to like deflect the bullets and things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Gotcha,
I remember that.
It was fun. It was definitely very early gameplay and pretty buggy. But the dev was sitting down with me while I was playing it, and I gave them some really good feedback and ideas and stuff. And he was sitting there with like a notepad, writing these down. And I was like, there was one tip I gave them, and he brought over like the senior dev, and they were like talking with me about it. They're like, "That's actually a really good idea. We'll definitely consider that." And I know if an opportunity comes up again where you want to play this game and like, see what we come up with later on, would you want to be included? I was like, yeah, hell yeah. It was a fun game, very early like gameplay wise, but opportunities like that exist at Summer Games Fest, which I really appreciated, because I wasn't too big on Spine either. I didn't really, I just saw it on the appointment list and I was like, all right, sure, I'll go check it out. And I left enjoying that experience.
And I think, to counter myself, I think that's the benefit of these experiences, right? Because if you're a AA developer, it's a really big platform, and you get the chance to talk to a really a wide variety of people that you're just never going to get the chance to talk to otherwise. But I'm really curious though, Clark, what happened with Deadpool?
I thought
What's a Deadpool?
I thought I was gonna vomit because I got so motion sick, and like also, man, I'm a veteran. And I'm kind of wired to like move around and stuff, and it was clear I was supposed to be like standing in one spot, but I was like moving around. I almost hit the lady. It was a whole thing, and then I took it off, and I was so nauseous for like 30 minutes. So it's fine. It's great. It's probably
that sounds
really
like
good.
me. That sounds like me.
I will never. I'll try it again, maybe, but sitting down. That's what BltzZ said I should do.
That would be my concern, because I'm not a big VR person either, because I'm always concerned that I'm gonna do because you're completely oblivious to what's happening around you, right? You have no idea, and the way the headset works as well, where it basically like drowns the sound out without putting anything in your ears. It's really surreal.
Very sensory.
I'm not a big VR person either, so
I can't do it either.
I did want to bring up from Summer Games Fest a couple of fun games, and then one controversial aspect. And Lumina's Arise was one I really wished I had. I knew was coming out. Lumina's.
Did you play the original?
Really fun. It's very fun. Lumina's is. I love the original, and Arise looks like it's such an improvement of that formula, and it'll be really fun. It's exactly what it is, and it's like it's one of those things that's kind of hard to mess up. Just have really good music and have good visuals that illuminate the puzzle solving stuff, and you're good. But I was pleasantly surprised that it was there. The other thing I wanted to bring up was really odd about the showcase itself was the preponderance of Mundfish games. Now, one of the games actually looked kind of good to me, which was Ill. That's something a lot of people brought up. But Mundfish is a really interesting company, and it seemed to like kind of dominate the show. And Mundfish is a company that's got a lot of controversy involving, and I shit you not, Russian oil money. And
what?
Yes, and just there's a vibe of the show too that I just want to mention. The vibe really peeled back a lot of more political statements that have been made the previous 3 years, and we all know why. But also, it really pushed some of this kind of, I don't want to say problematic, but it was a very different vibe, is all I'll say. And Mundfish seemed to be kind of at the head of that, like this really warmongering Russian oil mob money thing. And I'm not making a statement on that one way or another, but it really, I felt like it kind of changed the tone of the show in a way that I think
did the audience react in any way?
Like Asmongold, for instance, really liked the show, and then there was a bunch of other people like, that was the worst show I've ever seen. And I think that illuminates why, and I won't get into specifically, but I think there is some. If you peel back the layers of the messaging, the show took a really strange turn. But behind the scenes, at Play Days, things were pretty normal and mellow, and I think very developer friendly. You know, I just wanted to add that.
Nice.
Thank you.
In terms of games that I was really interested in, the one that actually stood out the most was Beast of Reincarnation, which is actually a game from Game Freak.
Yeah.
The people who have notoriously been effing up the Pokemon.
That was in the
games
Xbox showcase, right?
Yeah.
It was in the Xbox showcase. So that game like stood out to me the most. Essentially, it's said to be a Souls-like. A lot of the times that's said to mean a game that's more like Sekiro than actual
What does
Souls.
that mean? Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a broader term that just means that it's not a hack and slash game, which is kind of like what Souls-like has come to mean.
There is difficulty and you will die.
Yeah, it's difficulty, you'll die. It's probably not as combo-centric as a Devil May Cry game. That tends to be all Souls-like means now. Because a lot of these games are not even remotely close to being like Souls whatsoever. But that game looked really cool. It's kind of cool to see Game Freak getting outside of their normal output. You know, Game Freak's worked on games that weren't Pokemon before. They've also worked on stuff that wasn't Nintendo before. But I don't think they've ever produced anything like this.
Yeah.
Ever. You know, something that looks like a AAA game that is going to definitely be for PlayStation 5 and Xbox and Steam. And it's not even coming to the Switch 2, mind you, which is also really fascinating too. So getting to see that studio do something that's completely independent from the Pokemon games is fascinating. And it's also kind of interesting too to see, you know, so much criticism around the visuals of the recent Pokemon games and how, let's just be frank here, horrendously ugly those games are. And it kind of calls into question, you know, has it really been Game Freak this whole time? Is Game Freak really the whole problem? Or is it the other stakeholders involved that are kind of like, listen, we're giving you X amount of funding. We're giving you X amount of time. We need you to keep
make the
churning
games
these games
too good.
out. Yeah, don't make the games too good, right? Because that's going to take more time and more money, and we want them out at this cadence. And so you need to crap them out as fast as possible. And of course, you know, with Pokemon being kind of, you know, the largest grossing media franchise, they can really do whatever they want. I mean, they can put out bad Pokemon games forever and ever and ever, and no one's going to stop buying them. No one's going to, you know, make a big deal about it.
Money printer for sure.
You know, and so, I mean, you know, just look at like Pokemon cards, for example. You know, people, like the way those have basically become stocks for people. The resale market for it is absolutely ridiculous, you know? So, you know, there's nothing really stopping the Poke train. So I just think that it's really interesting to see that Game Freak can make a game that is visually stunning, stands next to a lot of the best AAA games that we can see. Trailer did have horrendous performance issues, which I don't even understand how a trailer can have performance issues. Like, you know, can't you just run this thing on a 4090 or 5090 and just like overpower the performance issues, right? Like, why do you have a trailer running at like 15 frames per second? Yeah, like my assumption is that they have to have it running on the console hardware to debut it at the show, right? Yeah. That's what I imagine. Because other than that, I'm like,
well, I mean, it's the Xbox, and anything's an Xbox. So, what is the hardware?
Yes. So just purchase a $5,000 Xbox that can play it at 60 frames per second at least, and then there you go. So
there's an interesting video I saw with the recent Pokemon game. And this guy did an experiment where he played it on the actual like regular Switch hardware and captured a specific amount of gameplay. And then he booted it up in an emulator and captured that same exact footage. And it's wild how high quality the assets are, like on an emulator. Just I mean, these things are in there. It's just the
people
hardware
have been,
is super.
I mean, the Pokemon Scarlet like Switch 2 version is considerably better.
Yeah, it's
like
just,
night and day.
Yeah, it's wild to see the difference in that sense, and that it was a pretty interesting watch, I think, and it's just kind of like put it into perspective where hardware wise some of these things can be impacted in that sense. But I'm excited for the Game Freak game. I saw we watched that before we went to the the second day of play days, but I don't think that title was there to play.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think it's ready to be played, brother.
Yeah, true.
Judging by the trailer.
Look, but don't touch.
Chugging, bro. Me and Sleepy were watching the show, and we were like betting on the over or under that the next game was going to be over 30 frames or under 20 frames.
Yo. That's how you knew Game Freak was working
that
on
Xbox
it,
conference, I think, I don't know if you guys feel the same way about the other conferences in terms of like the quality of, or like the stature of the games that were shown, and also like the frequency between announcements and updates. But to me, the Xbox conference had like so many games from established studios, plenty of new IPs. Like I know everyone's freaking out about Clockwork Revolution, for example, from inXile. Super Meat Boy 3D. Who saw that coming? Just came out of nowhere. They obviously had Ryan's favorite Persona 4 Revival revealed in the showcase. Yes. The new Double Fine game. They had so many like high quality properties, and even like the Blood of the Dawnwalker. It's a new IP from a new studio, but it's ex CD Projekt Red people. So you roughly know what that. And they just dropped a huge gameplay reveal for that like yesterday, I think, which looked really impressive. I don't know if you guys managed to see that or not.
I saw a little bit of it. Yeah, it looks really good. The visuals are top notch.
You're also forgetting the really amazing and fantastic Call of Duty that they surprised everybody with at the end there. Which honestly, that trailer, like seeing Milo in the trailer and the butterfly and the way the cities were folding over, I was like, man, this looks insane. I can't wait to.
And then it was oh.
When I heard Menendez,
they got us so good with that one.
Good. Yeah.
They did, dude. I used to play Call of Duty a lot back in the day, and even like the story campaign stuff. And when I heard the name Menendez, it just like I was like, "What?
Hold up!
I was like, isn't that?" I was watching with a group of people. I was like, "Isn't that a Call of Duty villain?" And then the trailer, the title drops, and I'm like, "Oh, really? That's what y'all did?" Philly, we're excited for that.
Given your background, Blitz, how did you feel about the Invincible versus reveal, and how it's like it's one of those things where it was like probably they were probably so excited about the announcement until 2 days before when they saw.
You're right. I'm happy because more 3v3 assist based like fighters that are widely available to us and also fun to play. I'm all for, and it's like we used to be in a element where you probably have like 1 or 2 really good fighting games come out in a year, and then spares in between.
That's kind of how I was thinking about it too, because I mean it's from a development perspective it's obviously difficult because there's more competition in the marketplace, but from a consumer's perspective it's great because all of these developers are having to try and innovate and one up themselves, and the product that you're going to end up with is going to be so good as a result of that, because you've also got 2 times KO, which who knows really what's happening with that project, whether it's going to come out. That, considering Riot Games' pedigree, like when they release games, generally it has a really big impact on the industry that they choose to target. Absolutely. And the fact that one's free to play as well could be a huge game changer.
For the entire genre.
Yeah, and like fighting game, they're eating good at the moment. You've also got the new Virtua Fighter that's in the wings as well. It's a lot of the old IPs are coming back, and the fact that there's some new ones entering the fray too, I think is really, really impressive. It's just, I guess the hope is that they don't go the way of multiverses, and they can find an audience and stick around.
Yeah. Oh god, that still hurts. But I'm really excited about the Invincible game specifically because for a while I was thinking like why aren't other fighting games doing the fatality element, right? Like why is that just like a Mortal Kombat thing, right? So seeing Invincible, while it's not necessarily a fatality, but I don't know if you guys have played like the MK games, it functions more like a brutality.
Yeah.
I was chatting with Max about this actually the day after. Actually, no, the same day they revealed it, and he was describing it as essentially if your final hit on an enemy is obviously the killing move and it's like a special move, depending on what it is, it'll execute that enemy, like punch a hole through their chest or like cut off their head and stuff. And it's like in a really cool way, like the ways brutalities work in Mortal Kombat, which I think brutalities are cooler because it's an actual gameplay thing. It's not like a cutscene. It's something that you actually do in combat, and you actually have to kind of like set it up too, depending on what move you're using on the enemy, how many times you hit them, because some brutalities only activate after a 10-hit combo is reached. So it's going to be really interesting seeing that implemented in a 3v3 fighting game with assists and also the Invincible IP, which is like the perfect fit for that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
for
going to
sure.
be, I'm sure they've obviously thought about it significantly, but it seems as though that's going to be one for the highlight reel, right? It's going to be,
Definitely, you know,
people are
like
going to be sharing the clips around, and like, you know, if you have a 3-person setup where you end with a like that combo and like everyone's going to be going crazy.
Yes, I could already see it, man, because like there's a character in Mortal Kombat, Noob Saibot, and he's famous for like having his clone hold you down while he like messes you up.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be really cool to see like if your assist can like hold down the enemy, and then you guys do like this crazy animated super where they tear you in half or something like that. Like there's so many cool ways they can go about it, and it's like especially like with the fact that like Marvel Tokon is a thing, and obviously it wildly like shocked everybody. That has a lot of things going for it, of course, but obviously the main thing being 4v4. Like not a lot of no fighting game has really done that. You know, minus like Smash, but like just saying like in that type of element, 4v4 fighting, that's obviously going to take the cake for that. But then you got like Invincible with their fatalities or their brutalities, whatever they're going to call it, whenever, you know, that releases. So it's really cool to see that they actually do have something that'll make them stand out and give people a reason to play it instead of just only focusing on one game. So I'm definitely a big fan of that.
Yeah, for sure. Other than that, for me, you know, going back to Persona 4 Revival, I think that's really awesome. We kind of saw, though, in like Sega's latest financial report that game is not coming this fiscal year. So that means that it is happening past April of 2026, which means that Persona 6, for example, is probably not coming until like 2027. And that's at the earliest. That's like way at the earliest. So it's possibly 2028, and that's like 12 years after Persona 5.
But we also saw in the financial report, accidentally, the reason why Persona 6 isn't coming out, because they don't need it to.
Yeah.
They absolutely don't need it to.
Yeah.
They can take their time. So in the financial report, Sega forgot to remove the slide that had all the sales of their games on it for like the past like 6 years. And so we have been seeing how Persona 5 Royal has been selling, and it's absolutely nuts. So basically, Persona 5 Royal, not Persona 5, because 5 OG wasn't even factored into this. It only started at fiscal year 2020. Persona 5 Royal alone has sold 7.25 million copies. When you add in Persona 5 OG, Persona 5 is over 10 million units.
Awesome.
That's
crazy.
Right. So think about this, right? That makes it the biggest JRPG franchise that isn't Pokemon right now, for the most part. Unless you count Monster Hunter and Soulsborne. I know that gets like really like tenuous. Like people get really contentious about that, like whether you want to count those games as part of JRPGs. But if you don't count them, then Persona is basically ahead of Dragon Quest. It's ahead of Final Fantasy. It's ahead of basically everything.
The crazy thing
Aside
for me
from
though
maybe
was
Nier.
the legs.
Yeah.
It was the legs, because I mean, yeah, if you're comparing, it came out 2 months before Final Fantasy 15. Their sales are pretty much neck and neck, but Final Fantasy 15 was really front loaded with those sales. Like it had decent legs for a Final Fantasy game, But Persona 5 Royal has had incredible legs, especially in the last 3 years. It's selling like 1.5, 2 million copies per year still. I can guarantee that Final Fantasy 15 is not selling 1.5 to 2 million copies right now. I don't think any Final Fantasy game is selling that in a year after its release right now. And the fact that, I mean, like, as of next year, if it continues selling in the same rate or realm that it is, then it would easily have passed Final Fantasy 15. And in a couple of years, it may even have surpassed Final Fantasy 7, which is the best-selling game in the franchise's history. It's not outside the realm of possibility. It's like it's Atlus's GTA 5.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah.
Like people are saying, why aren't they releasing GTA 6? Because GTA 5 is still one of the best-selling games released every year.
Every single year.
Yeah.
Every single year.
And why cut that off, right? Because when you release it, then it immediately starts to decline.
It's the same as the MMO conversation, right? If you've got a really successful MMO, it's really dangerous to release another one because you don't know how the fan base is going to react to that. There will be some people that move forward onto the new one, but there'll be so many people that don't want to let go. I mean, GTA 5 is so successful because of the online component, and that is a huge risk for Rockstar. And I mean, how many copies has GTA 5 sold now? It's over 200 million or something ridiculous.
I think it's actually literally the highest selling video game of all time. Like,
by no short margin either.
And it's... I'm trying to look it up now. Oh, wait, I forgot to add
That was one of the
on
last
there.
midnight launches I went to, and that was a crazy launch. Like, it was like a party in the parking lot of where that GameStop was.
GTA
215 million.
215. GTA 6 is going to be the biggest launch of all time. It has to be. Yeah. There's no other way around it. But Persona 6 will be that for Atlus.
Yeah, no, and for JRPGs in general, right? Because I think it
doesn't feel like we've had that for a long time, where like a Japanese-based game outside of Resident Evils, but even they don't sell massively well at launch either. They just have really good legs.
They have great legs.
Yeah, I think you'd have to go with like FromSoft maybe to kind of like. Well, I don't know.
Elden Ring did like incredibly well.
Yeah.
But like JRPGs, there hasn't been like a big launch. I mean, Final Fantasy 15 selling 5 million day one was a record for Square Enix, and that's the milestone. It hasn't been beaten yet.
Yeah, and so
that's kind of small fry for other game franchises.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, and especially going back to Persona 5 Royal, they sold 1.75 million last fiscal year. That's like
crazy.
Just last fiscal year, and looking at the sales, it was actually like up from like the previous like 2 or 3 years. I don't even know what happened. Like, I don't even know what caused it to go up. But it just shot up.
Like they're just doing such a good job with their IP. I mean, there's that slide from a previous one where it shows the compound effect of every release.
Yeah.
And you know, when they release Persona 3, for example, and then they released FES like a year later, then they did a redone version as well, I think, for the PS2 or something like that. They re-released it again. And then they did Persona 4, and then they did Golden. And then each time, the sales increase. Like, there's just like it's exponential. And then obviously with Persona 5, it's the same trend. They had Royal. They've done a good job with building out each Persona's universe as well. So with Persona 5, there was the supporting games. They did the good tie-in with Koei Tecmo, Persona 5 Strikers, I think it was. And they did Tactica, which everyone was like, oh, that's a huge failure. It hasn't sold that well. But it's still sold well enough to help build the IP for people that are invested in it. And you'd again imagine that those games still exist. People that are coming into Persona 5 Royal, there's a chance that they will then go and want to check out those games to get more exposure to it. There's the animes too. And obviously Persona 3 Reload came out last year. People that have played Metaphor may be thinking, like everyone says that Metaphor is just like Persona but a different setting, maybe I'll like that game. And I think that's how they've really benefited. It's the same as the Souls games, right? It's just they had this really good word of mouth thing where whatever your first FromSoft game is, whether it's Sekiro or Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3 or Elden Ring, people will be like, oh, well, if you liked Elden Ring, you'd love Bloodborne. Like, go and check it out. And then, like, you did it, Ryan, right? You just kind of get sucked in, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to play all of them.
I played one, and then now I'm like super down the whole pipeline of Souls games.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's what I've been trying
the Atlas Master Plan. But it seems to be happening with a lot of the Sega IPs right now.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to shout at Square Enix to do. Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's why you need a pipeline, because you can't be like, oh yeah, Final Fantasy 16 is the best game ever. What do I play next? Oh, literally none of the games are like this. Okay. Well,
one day they figure it out, man. They figure out the Capcom and Sega magic.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So, okay, there's one last thing I wanted to ask you guys about, and that is the Xbox ROG Ally, the thing we're all the most excited about. No, I'm totally kidding. The current future of Xbox is looking a little shaky right now, because their new plan is that everything is an Xbox. So they're not going to have any proprietary hardware. And basically, it seems like PC is also going to kind of be an Xbox too. What are you guys thinking about the future of Xbox? Because I'm kind of thinking that there is part of me that feels like that could work. That could actually put them on top in like the long run.
It's
because the console, it is, yeah.
Easily, yeah.
Tell us more.
For them as a company, I mean, Microsoft in general, they never made hardware. They were just like, all the PC manufacturers, you can do whatever you want, but we own the software. Like, everyone has to have these things. If you want to be a professional, you have to have Office. There are other ones out there, but no one really uses them. And they've been casually, Xbox is getting more and more a good deal every day. Like, there are so many good properties being released on there. And I don't think they particularly care about people buying games on Xbox anymore. It's not really their model. I mean, like, you look at their financial report and you compare 10 years ago to now. I think 10 years ago, 75% of their revenue came from selling Xboxes. Whereas now it's like 6% or something like that. But they're making way more money now than they ever did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest concern for me is something that Sony actually said, because Sony don't have a specific competitor anymore. Nintendo, they're not really head to head in the hardware market, and I think there is a risk that, and we've seen it with Sony before, when like after the PlayStation 2, when they were so far ahead, the PlayStation 3, they got arrogant, right? They were like, well, everyone's going to buy it no matter what we do, like no matter how obtuse we make our architecture, like no matter what the price point is, people will buy it and people will make games for it because they have no choice, because we are the market leader.
Yeah.
And that came back to bite them, because Xbox were like, no, actually, we're here to play, and we're going to do some really shrewd decisions to cut into your market share. We're going to launch slightly early with the first HD console. We're going to sign up Japanese developers. We're going to get all these new IPs on our system. And it hurt Sony, and they were then forced to try and recover and come back from that and innovate. They're not really going to have to do that anymore. And I think Xbox is a great decision for them. Like, it's clearly working for them. They've got a monopoly on the Game Pass market now. Like, PlayStation Plus and Nintendo Switch Online are not really strong competitors.
Majority of the people I know that game that don't even like make content and stuff, they're just like consuming games. They're playing off of Game Pass, and it's like,
really interesting.
Yeah, a lot of like family
PlayStation
members.
Plus is just it's just not a good offer in comparison. It's just, and the price point is not too dissimilar either.
Yeah, it's not. I like it because on PlayStation Plus I get, I guess, games that are more exclusive to Sony's library, and those end up outweighing the kind of third-party games, I guess. But when it comes down to it, Game Pass does end up being a better deal overall for most people, especially when you have PC Game Pass and you have Xbox Game Pass. And
Well, I mean, that was the crazy thing from the Xbox conference, right? Every single game that they showed is on Game Pass.
Yeah.
Right. And Nintendo.
So, like, if you want to play,
$80, right?
If you want to play Beast of Reincarnation, it's going to be on Game Pass.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to do. It's so convenient, and it's one of those things that once you get into the ecosystem, you're not going to get out. You're not going to give up your Game Pass, right? And it is going to become a Netflix situation. And one thing that people have to be wary of with subscription services is that every subscription service has the long-term agenda of raising the current price, right? So Xbox Game Pass isn't going to cost what it currently costs. Eventually, if they can get you paying $30 or $40 a month, that's kind of their end goal, right? So they'll slowly raise those numbers.
The thing with Xbox, though, that's quite interesting, and obviously Sony went down the route, and they were talking recently about how proud they are that they've got the 3-tier models which they introduced, and they're successfully managing to get people to pay more money. Xbox haven't done the same model of excluding content, really. With PlayStation Plus, it's the 3 tiers are you have to pay more money to get access to the classic games, or you can get free games of a certain tier if you pay a certain amount of money. Whereas Xbox is like, the deals are, you can have an Xbox subscription, or you can have a PC subscription, or you can have a both subscription. I don't think there's anything other than that, is there? Maybe there is something slightly more, but they haven't really raised the price too much. It's been minimal, I think, but the quality is getting better. And I think compared to if we're comparing it to the TV audience with Netflix and all of the other failed subscription services that have happened, most of those other subscription services happened because of Netflix, and they were all thinking, hold on a minute, what are you doing? You're eating our market share. We don't like this. We're traditional TV channels. Like, don't do that to us, please. Whereas Microsoft are the Netflix, but they're also ridiculously huge. Xbox is a very, very small part of their business and a very, very small part of their revenue, and they have a monopoly at the moment around it. But obviously, they're looking at Steam as a direct competitor to them. Because Steam obviously still does very, very well without the subscription-based model. But I think, it's going to be very interesting to see how things play out moving forward, because Xbox has obviously come out and said they will be making a new Xbox 2. It's just not going to be quite what we think it is in comparison to what we have now. It could be more of a Steam Deck equivalent, maybe. Because Steam Deck obviously has done okay for Steam in terms of people like it, but I think it's going to be very, very interesting the next generation for sure.
Yeah, it is. I guess it's basically just going to be like a PC, in the same way that the ROG Ally is, and the same way that the Steam Deck is. But it's going to be like a at-home PC that you can buy, and I mean, it'll play Steam games, which they've already kind of announced, and I don't know.
It's the only way, I think, to tap into what we talk about often as a mature market. I mean, we lost Daryl for a second, but like there really isn't anything that's creating new gamers in the console space. I even think that the Switch 2 is not going to really tap into new markets. I think it's going to just really exist in the market that's there really well, and everything is the Xbox is the only thing that really interfaces well with the most addictive piece of hardware that's available to us, which is our phones and social media. And everything is the Xbox thing is a way that kind of interconnects with how short our attention span is. And so really what I think is happening is that each little niche of the big three is finding where they operate the best. And nobody's going away. Everything's going to be everything. I do know that Xbox is supposed to have a next gen box, but I don't think they care about it. I think that it's just an obligation that they have to have a piece of hardware.
Yeah, like the Steam Deck, right? It's just they've seen it's worked okay for Steam. They just have this thing that people can buy if they want to.
If they sell 500,000, they're fine. They're fine.
Yeah.
Like
yep.
The way that console wars are presented on social media in the Terminal on space is that there's a war and there's victors. All of them are fine. PlayStation 6 can sell 700 million, and the Xbox Series Z can sell 50,000, and both companies will be fine, and the brands will survive. Like it kind of doesn't matter. They're both just finding where they can thrive, you know. So yeah, that's my take on Xbox.
Do you think we will ever see another company enter the console market?
Not as a consoles are gone after PlayStation and Switch, and it's just gonna be phones and tablets.
Yeah, we saw what happened with Google.
Yeah, it's just gonna be phones and tablets in
they tried
2 generations.
Yeah, phones, tablets, and PCs.
Yeah.
PCs are going to be where people go to do high-end gaming. And what's interesting too is that you're going to have like the same games on your tablet and on your PC. But people who are like us, who want that high-end experience, they'll get it on PC. And people who are just like the mass market consumer, they'll play it on their iPad. And I know that's very upsetting for like gamers to hear because they love their consoles, they're very attached.
What
to
about
them,
what about the people that want to play on their 60-inch TVs though?
They will dock their iPad to it, like the Switch currently, works, and
the Xbox Game Pass dock.
Yeah.
Newer
exactly.
Newer TVs will be able to do it as a service.
Yeah,
that's right. Sony had that with the PlayStation, and it worked pretty well actually. I tested it out a few times. It was the latency wasn't as apparent. Sorry.
The remote play thing or something else?
Well,
no, it's PlayStation Now service built into the TV.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
I demoed it at Best Buy once. And
Xbox has a thing like that.
Cloud X?
Yeah, xCloud. xCloud, I think it's called.
Yeah, on some TVs.
They do.
Yeah. The latest Samsung TVs.
Oh yeah, and you can just play games straight from that. And I don't think necessarily that all games will be cloud. I just think that that'll probably become a more normalized option as we go along.
That's a 2028, 2029 thing.
Yeah, but I think that and I know people have basically been predicting the end of consoles since PlayStation 3-ish.
Yeah,
for a long time.
Where people, for a very long time, people are like, they'll have phones, and then they'll have computers, and then that'll just be it. There probably will be a space for consoles or for hardware that's built so you can just pick it up and start gaming, but it probably will be something like what Microsoft is planning here, unless I got the latest PlayStation with all the exclusive games. That I think probably has a lifespan on it, a foreseeable lifespan.
I mean, Nintendo have usually been the ones that determine as well in terms of what happens. They every two consoles they come out with something crazy that no one predicted. That then means everyone needs to go and buy some new hardware again.
Yeah. So I mean, they're kind of the ones that are going to keep people in a exclusive hardware position, because one, they would never give up their exclusive hardware, and two, like you said, they're gonna come up with some type of wacky wiggle that's gonna make people go and buy it because you have to have the hardware in order to do it.
Remember back in the day, our parents, every game console, everything that we had, they'd always refer to it as a Nintendo. You're gonna bring your Nintendo with you,
sir.
or stop playing the Nintendo. I'm like, it's a PlayStation, mom. But that Nintendo has that legacy embedded into a lot of people's head in that way. But I think Microsoft switching is definitely really smart, because now more than ever, PC gaming is almost every house has a capable gaming PC. So for them to switch to that market and being able to say like, you can use your PC, which is like the main way that most people play these days, is definitely a smart decision on Microsoft's end. And it's like, in 2020 when people were going crazy trying to get PlayStation 5s and stuff, I remember going into stores and seeing like Xboxes on shelves, but there was no like PlayStations to be seen in person. And it was like that and I live in a very I live in an area where there's a lot of people going out, and like you can't just go to a store and find like Pokemon cards on the shelves. These things are gone immediately.
Yeah.
So like to see like that many Xboxes just like in circulation, not being purchased at all, I think Microsoft definitely made a W decision on their end, pivoting towards being, well, like you guys are saying, everything's an Xbox.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
And
how
they'll
my
probably
cousin, our nephew actually, that's how my nephew got an Xbox Series X, because he had asked my dad, his grandfather, for a PlayStation 5, and they just couldn't find one. So they just came home with him an Xbox Series X, which is like the next best thing.
Thanks.
Yeah. And I was like, and he still kind of wants a PS5 now, especially. But Game Pass is a great deal for him though, because he just gets to play all those games for just that subscription. So, meanwhile, I had to beg mom and dad for a new game all the time.
I know.
They just get
It's crazy though. With Game Pass, I do
Yeah.
find myself playing games in a different way now.
Yeah.
I'm not because there's so many available. I don't think I'll give games as fair of a shout anymore. Like if it's not gelling with me, then I'm more likely to ditch it, I think, than I would have been in the past. Where I'm like, I've paid money for this. I'm gonna stick with it until the bitter end.
Yeah.
That was a real struggle back in the day, man. I remember when Final
You had
Fantasy
one
13,
game in a year.
Yeah, Final Fantasy
This is
13 was coming out, and I had to like ask everybody I knew. I was like, "Yo, should I get Final Fantasy 13 or should I get the new Call of Duty?" And everybody was like, "Yo, get the new Call of Duty. It's gonna last you way longer. You're gonna play it for many, many years." And that was a defining moment in my life that set me on the COD kid trajectory that I ended up going on. And probably dodged a bullet with 13. I don't know. I still don't know much about that game, but I don't hear great things in my community from it.
You should stream it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally think, man.
I'll do it.
Yeah, you'll be like, Final Fantasy 13 is great. Why did I sleep on this title?
Yeah.
All right, guys. I think this is a good place to wrap it up. Blitz, where can we find you? What are you currently working on?
You guys can find me on YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok. BltzZ, just BLTZZ. I'm constantly dabbling in everything these days. Trying to also not do the tunnel vision thing, because I get a lot of comments about that, where like we'll go hard on one game and then months will just go by on like a totally different game and we won't even go back or like pivot. So I'm getting better at that, chat. Getting better at making sure that all the games that we cover are being shown love and returned back to and stuff. So we dabble in a little bit of everything, man. This year was kind of wild between Monster Hunter, Expedition 33, and there's another game. FF7 Rebirth came back. It was just like a non-stop swing of different games, and that's what you can kind of look forward to on the channel. Is we'll be dabbling in a little bit of everything, and especially next year, Capcom is probably going to be a regularly featured company in terms of like what games and stuff we'll be playing, because I'm really looking forward to Resident Evil 9, Onimusha, and Pragmata, as I've talked to you guys' ears off about. And
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're finally going to stop neglecting FF7. Is that what you're telling us, Blitz?
Let it out of the bait. Nah, I think it still
gotta
deserves
wait.
some time.
Yeah.
What happened to this being a Final Fantasy channel, man? You fell off.
Oh man, Multiverses did something to me, and then I probably also ended up killing Multiverses.
The Blitz
Big guy, by
curse.
the way.
The Blitz
Proud of you.
curse. There's an inside joke we have where we're like, once Blitz covers the game, it's going to get shut down.
It dies, and it's like
Because it's happened with
oh,
Multiverses
man.
and what else? What was another
First
game?
Soldier.
First Soldier.
Now,
Okay, so maybe don't play rematch. Don't play rematch.
yeah, right.
Gotcha.
It's most recently, and it's not necessarily like it's killed. It's just like there's nothing really active right now in it. It's like Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter was another one of those recent Blitz kill list games.
Nice. So if you want a game dead, talk to Blitz, and he will kill that thing in like a month. I promise you. All right, guys. Take care. I'll see you later.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Bye, buddy.
Bye.